You're listening to The Girl Dad Show.
Welcome to Season 3 of The Girl Dad Show, where we explore the intersection of parenthood and entrepreneurial spirit. Join me and some incredible guests as we share tips and tricks for finding work-life balance and making a positive impact not only on the world, but also our families. Let's create a fulfilling life together. It's The Girl Dad Show, Season 3. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The Girl Dad Show. Today, I have Brooke Winters here with me today with Clarity HR Consulting, which she started 5 years ago, doing amazing work helping companies with their HR needs and all of the stuff that goes with all the difficult things that go with managing people and helping them solve those problems and turn them into great successes. She is also a mother of 3, and I'm so excited to have her here to talk to me about her journey navigating both her business and her family. Brooke, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Young. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. I know it's been a really fun exercise to try to get this schedule.
Yeah. What happens when you put two people with very busy schedules together?
That's right. And then it kind of goes very timely with the conversation we're going to have today, because I think that it's so challenging for parents to be business owners, because those are two things that are incredibly time consuming. But let's get into it. If you don't mind telling the listeners a little bit more about why you started your business and when did you start it?
Yeah, I started this business 5 years ago. At the time, it was Brooke Winters Consulting. So I was just freelancing by myself. I had plans to grow, but in your head, you're like, that's down the road. That's going to be like 5-10 years down the road. Sure, I'll do that later. And COVID 2022 came along and blew up my business in the best way possible. I ended up growing really quickly and I rebranded to Clarity HR Consulting. So I have a small team that I work with now. They are small and mighty. They are fantastic. And we actually work with companies all over the country just because of the nature of remote work. So we service businesses, small, medium, and a few large companies all over the country. And we help them with their HR needs. So whether they're making their first hire, or they're just looking for someone to come in and audit and analyze their current HR department, we do a little bit of everything. And we have a team of experts that come in and cut through the noise and all of the lovely employment law BS that people have to try to navigate themselves. And so we're happy to do that. But our heart is really for people. So I think a lot in HR has been traditional and it's not positive usually. I mean, if you have a meeting with HR, you're probably nervous. You're not excited to meet with them. And that's real. But we actually like people. We like bringing employers and employers together and finding a way to make the workplace awesome again and have workplaces thrive and be a place that people actually enjoy being at their jobs. And so that's what we really try to specialize in, is making culture just prominent, king, make it someplace where people want to be.
It's the hardest part. Yeah. I mean, I will chime in and say that as a business owner myself, it's the most important and hardest part of running a business. You can get pretty far by yourself, but if you want to ever truly scale, you do need more help. You need people. You need people to support your business, and you need to grow it. And there's no easy way to manage and inspire and lead people. And so it's one of the most challenging aspects of growing a business. And it's so funny because you're like, I just want to clean pools, or I just want to bake cakes. And it's like, you have to learn this whole thing that is like completely new and foreign for most business owners. So I'm really, really glad to hear that you're so passionate about it. But can you talk to me about how many kids you have and how old they are?
Yes, I have 3 kids. My oldest is 15 and a half. So she's super pumped to start driving, which is crazy.
Nice.
And then I have an 11-year-old daughter, Kennedy. And then my youngest is 10, Judah. And my oldest is Alexis, if I didn't say that. So they are amazing. They're all very unique, all require a very unique set of parenting skills, but they're fantastic.
So you're officially all teenagers.
I mean, if you call 11 and 10 teens, I think that's like a tween. Is that what they call that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whatever that is.
Are you qualifying it now because you're combating it? You're like, no, they're tweens. They're not teenagers.
They're not. I'm in denial. They're not teens yet. No, I can handle
that's good.
One teen at a time. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you the tween. So just if I can do the math here, you started your business when your oldest was 10 then?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Interesting. So were you a W-2 before that?
I was, yeah. So I did HR for a large corporation previously, and I was miserable. It was not a fun job. I was salaried. I was working for a brick and mortar store with a couple hundred employees, and I was hired to do HR. But brick and mortar, as we know, there's lots of changes going on. And so I actually was the ops and HR combined into one. So I was pulling like 80-hour weeks and never saw my kids. Yeah, we had 2 nannies. Like, who does that? Like, who has like that? It was crazy.
Multiple.
It just made no sense. So, but I'm passionate about the work I do no matter what environment I'm in. So I'm like, if I'm going to do this, if my team is here, I'm here. That was my mentality. And so it was exhausting doing the W-2 thing and being salaried like that. That was a hard season.
So was the impetus of deciding to start a business because of the time commitment of your job?
No, not at all. No.
I'm like, because it sounds like,
no.
yeah. Why did you decide to go off on your own then?
Yeah, I mean, the time, I think partly because even though it was 80 hours a week, I didn't love the work. And so it felt like work. And the saying of, do something that you love, you don't feel like you work at all, that whole thing. That's very true. It was exhausting. It was painful. I had very little say in the corporate world of what I actually was about what I was doing. And so I just had no control. It was very, very policy driven, wasn't about people, and it was hard. It was really hard. So anyways, that being said, I learned a ton in that job, but staying home with my kids, I ended up taking off like 6 months in between that job and then starting my business. And while I was home taking care of my kids and trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, I started consulting from my couch on accident. So I had HR experience, and some of my friends were starting small businesses. They were entrepreneurs. They were getting ready to make their first hire, getting ready to open some of their first shops. And they would call me and ask me just for advice or for help or recommendations. And I loved it. I loved seeing those business owners succeed. I loved seeing them go after their dreams and being able to help them behind the scenes. And so I just did it for fun. It was a hobby. I wasn't charging. I didn't even think I should be charging. I just loved doing it.
But if I can just double click on something you said before, so you stopped working. You kind of it kind of crashed, it sounds like.
Yeah, I did. So I totally gave up on the workforce.
Tell me more about that. Yeah. Did you just have like a mental, like, I block, you're like, dude, they can't do this anymore. Like, this is crazy. Yeah. Two nannies. I'm not seeing my kid. Like, what's the point?
Oh my gosh. I have horror stories from that job. It was so terrible, Young. It was so horrible. I started getting anxiety.
Man.
I would start throwing up before I had to go into work because I was so stressed. I felt so alone, so unsupported by my employer, and having a couple hundred employees coming to me with their pain and their issues and having no resources to help them. It was a really, really bad experience. But again, like I learned a lot. And so once I left that job, I kind of needed to just take a breather and figure out, what am I going to do next? And I had to figure out, was it the job? Was it the work I was doing that was the issue? Or was it the place I was doing the work in? Was it the environment? And what I realized is I actually loved the work. I still loved HR. I loved operations. The work I was doing was fine. It was great.
Yeah.
But it was the environment. It was that corporate environment where you really don't get a say. You don't get a voice. You can't make an impact in the same way that you could in maybe a small or medium-sized business. And so I had that realization, but had no idea what to do with it. I had no idea. So yeah, that was a hard season. And also for me as a mom, I had young kids. I have always worked. Even when I had my kids, I didn't take off a lot of time after I had them, which was, kind of unique. But I like to work. I like showing up and doing a job and interacting with people, making an impact in a work space.
Yeah.
I love my kids very much, but I was not predisposed to be a stay-at-home mom. I don't love to cook. I don't get excited about crafts. That just wasn't my personality.
Yeah.
But when I took that time off after that job, I realized really quickly, I didn't actually know how to interact with my kids. very well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was a hard point. I had all the guilt. Oh my gosh,
one
so
emotional thing to another emotional thing. Yeah, walk me through that.
Yeah, I had to rediscover my kids. I had to rediscover who these little humans were and how I interacted with them and how how to say this well. I had to figure out how to fall back in love with my kids because I was home with them all day. And as we all know, anybody listening to this is probably a parent. It's the hardest job. It is the and exhausting and wonderful, but it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. So I had to figure out what that looked like and what was my personal brand of being a stay-at-home mom. What did that look like?
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to fit into a mold that wasn't me. I wanted to still be me, but I wanted to find a way to really spend quality time with my kids and figure out what it meant to be a stay-at-home mom. And I actually did. I actually, through a hard process of work on myself and also just figuring out what that looked like, I did. And that time is so precious to me. Those few months that I was home with them, where my sole focus and intention for everything was them, was really beautiful. And it's very much helped shape the mom I am today.
Yeah. And what is that? So what are the differences? So pre this kind of, digression from being a workhorse at a corporate job to rediscovering your momness to now, like what did you learn? What did you define it as? How do you tell me all the secrets?
Oh my gosh, all the secrets.
What did you learn from that experience?
I learned that being a great parent comes in all kinds of packages. Mm-hmm. There is not a one size fits all. I stopped looking at Pinterest. I just got off altogether.
Is that your vice? Is that your thing?
I love Pinterest, but I'm a perfectionist, and so I get so mad. I'm like, it didn't come out the way it looked on Pinterest, Yeah. And so it was like this. It was not good for me. It was kind of a toxic experience. I'm like, awesome for all of you. I'm not that great at what you just did. So I had to redefine like what does good enough look like, and it's not perfection. It's not perfection.
Yeah.
And so getting out with my kids, I realized like I actually like to be doing stuff. I don't want to be home all the time. I want to be on the go. And so when you have littles, oh my gosh, because at that time they were all teeny tiny, and taking them out was a lot of work, getting the bags ready, packing all the stuff. And that I made myself get out of the house once a day, whether it was a park, a friend's house, because that fed my soul, getting out and doing something. But it also gave them that social interaction that they needed too. So that was part of something that I worked into my day when I was staying home with them. And then we had downtime. And I'm not against electronics like TV and stuff. I just didn't want them to be on it all day. And so, we went to the library. They had story time we could sit in and do. We got books that I could read to them. And then nap time was like, all right, this is awesome. Like on a schedule. I got some downtime. But for me, I needed a schedule and a rhythm, because me, Brooke, I thrive. I thrive when I have a purpose. I thrive when I have somewhere to be. I need to wake up and have something to do that day. I'm not Miss Spontaneous, like, let's just see how the day goes. And so I just found a way to work that part of me and my personality into being a mom.
Yeah.
And it was very helpful for me. It was very helpful.
That's awesome. So you really figured out and like discovered a lot about yourself, and was able to figure out a lot about how to be a mom, but also how you wanted to work next. And but it doesn't sound like you actually intentionally figured out the consulting thing. It just kind of happened.
It kind of happened.
When did that happen? And were you actually like talking to your husband about not working anymore at all, or like what was that conversation like?
No, the plan was always for me to go back to work.
But he just looked at you and he was like, "You're vomiting before you go to work. We need to stop this. This sounds crazy.
You need to stop." Yeah, totally.
It wasn't even like a, "Hey, let's talk about the pros and cons." He's probably just like, "You probably should stop vomiting." Like,
oh my gosh. That's not great. It's not great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
he was so supportive. He was so. I mean, he wanted me to quit way before I quit. I was the hang up. I'm like, I committed, I'm in, I'm going to solve this puzzle. That was kind of my attitude. And that it wasn't healthy. I felt like I had done everything I could in that job and left it better than I found it, which is great, but it was time. So anyways, yeah. So, the plan was always for me to go back to work, both for financial reasons and also just because that's what I enjoy and that's what I get a lot of fulfillment out of. But where I was going to go back to work was the question. And I planned on applying for jobs, finding a different setting to go work in. And I was so burned out from management because of that job, that I was like, maybe I should just take a 9-to-5 non-supervisor type of position and just do the thing, clock in, clock out, because I was burned out, not because that's what
you were pendulum swinging. You were like reacting to the experience. And so you're trying to do the opposite. Yeah.
100%. And so as I was figuring out going back into the workforce, I started applying for jobs, like payroll, benefits specialist, data entry kind of jobs. I could not get an interview. Which I interview pretty well. And if I want something, I'm going to get it. And so this was like a weird pride thing. Like, oh my gosh, how do they not, I'm awesome. Why are they not hiring me? And I had to let go of some of my personal things, about, what is it that I deserve, or, all this stuff. And also realizing I was applying for things I was overqualified for. So maybe that was part of the reason I wasn't getting interviews.
Oh, I see.
But through that process, I actually feel like part of the reason I didn't get those jobs is because I was meant for something else. And maybe those interviewers or people looking at my application didn't realize that at the time, but I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason. And had I gotten any of those jobs, I think I would have settled. I think I would have found some comfort in the boring, mundane. But I don't think I would have been happy or fulfilled.
Yeah.
So couldn't get jobs. And I'd already been doing this couch hobby consulting I was telling you about. And a good friend of mine, Sam, who actually owns Theory Coffee.
I love Sam.
He's amazing. Yeah. So him and his wife are good friends of mine, and they were watching me do this couch consulting is the only way I can describe it. And they're like, you should start a business. Like that's Sam's brain, right? Entrepreneur. And I was like, that's not a thing. Like HR consulting, that's not a thing. Like HR consulting is not a thing.
Yeah.
And HR is internal. You have an HR manager, like they belong to that company. You don't just like float around. That just wouldn't work. And he's like, but you're already doing it. Like you're already doing it. So it is a thing. So he sent me to this great, fantastic business coach who I've worked with for almost 6 years now.
Oh, wow.
And so I went and talked to him just like to try to prove to Sam almost like this isn't a thing. He's going to tell me it's not a thing as soon as I talk to this business coach. So I went and talked to him and I was like, here's my plan. Here's what I've been doing. Could this actually be a viable business? Looking for him to just give me the secret sauce. Yeah. And he's like, you already have a business. You're just not getting paid.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that hurts. But it was the truth. So that's kind of how I came to that realization of actually consulting could be a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, you were waiting for the shoe to drop, and the reality was like you already had it. You just like almost didn't like want to see it.
Right. Yeah.
And so then what was the process of like taking the leap of faith of just doing it? And then it just sounds like that was the catalytic moment where you're like, okay, this is the new path.
Yeah. There was conversations. There's a lot of conversations between my husband about what does this mean? Because I knew enough about starting a business to know you're not going to make a ton of money. This is not going to be a nice 9-to-5 clock in, clock out experience.
That's right.
And so I really had to sit back and decide if that's something that I really was choosing into. And him and I talked together and we decided this was something big. And I had found a passion. I had found a job that people would give a lot of things to have something so special that they cared so much about, that brought in all of their skill sets and qualities and passions into one thing. And because he's a fantastic husband, he was like, you need to go for it. Like, you need to do this. This is something you're meant to do.
Nice.
We'll sacrifice because this matters. And so we both chose into it. But I can honestly say, like, having him support me through this process, I just can't imagine doing this without him. He's been a fantastic support every step of the way. But yeah, that was the choosing in. It was the hard work of saying yes to jumping out of the airplane and like, oh my gosh, what the hell did I just say yes to?
Yeah.
It was terrifying. It was terrifying, and having littles at home, knowing that I was going to have to make some hard decisions along the way, make sacrifices. I think that time, like I told you about, where I was figuring out who I was as a mom in those months leading up to this decision, were so precious, because I felt like I was coming from a space where I was fulfilled. They were fulfilled. We had built a relationship in a way I hadn't ever with my kids before. And so we were coming from this wealth of relationship between me as a mom and them as my children. And so watching them over the last, 5.5 years or whatever, like watching them through this journey of talking about me to their friends, talking about the business to people, has been amazing.
Wow.
I see how much they have also invested. They have invested in this business, whether they realized it or not. Because there's times where like they will say things to me, Young, where I'm like, you are wise beyond your years. Where like I have to miss something, and I'm like, hey guys, I really want to be there to see you get that award today. I'm not going to be able to make it. I tried, but I'm really excited. After school, we're going to go out to dinner, and I want to hear all about it. And they'll say something like, that's okay, Mom. You're working really hard and you're doing great things. Like,
oh my gosh,
melt
my heart. Yeah.
Oh gosh. Right? And
oh
like,
my gosh,
it's something that comes out. It's just so precious, but they also hear it from their dad. They hear it from people who we surround ourselves with, where they're picking up on Mom's doing something that's special and important. It doesn't mean she doesn't love me. It means that she's doing good work somewhere. So anyways,
how do they know that though? Like, are you and your husband talking to them about
I pound it into the, no, I think it's like I said.
Yeah, your oldest is old enough to actually probably grasp what you're doing. She probably understands the risk that you're taking, because she's like 15. So she probably has a really good understanding of it.
She does. Yeah, she absolutely does. Her plan right now is to become a lawyer. She's on that track, and she's wanted to do that for, like 2-3 years. She's very independent. She's doing debate and on, she's doing things to set herself up to go down that career path. So she's very driven. So she actually helps me with parts of the business right now. She's learning things. Like, she's asked to sit in and say, like, how do you bill people? What does that look like? How do you charge people? How do you decide how much a service is worth? And all those kinds of, like, she's asking about it because she's naturally curious. And I think she has a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit as well. But we surround ourselves, like me and my husband, we surround ourselves with really good people who are supportive, who share our values. And so our kids are a part of our world. When we go to dinner with people, we don't leave the kids at home. Like, our kids are there. They're listening to adult conversation. Yeah. And we encourage them to pipe in and ask questions. And our friends know, like, if you come over to our house, our kids are going to be hanging out with us. They're going to be a part of whatever we talk about. And so they're hearing it. They've been hearing it for years. We talk very openly about our world, our business, our plans, our ambitions, our goals. Like, we want them to hear about that from us, so they know how to dream. So they know they understand what it takes to sacrifice and go after something. So we don't hide that from them. Like, we're very open about, we are choosing into something, but that means we're saying no to other things. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Because I want to raise dreamers. I want to raise my kids to be happy and ambitious and joyful and go after whatever the heck they want to do. And if they don't see that from me and their dad, like, who are they going to learn it from?
This episode of The Girl Dad Show is brought to you by you. We have been working very hard to bring you the best guests and content to the show and have been steadily growing month over month. And we're finally ready to start talking to businesses that want to partner with us to promote on our show. So if you know anyone that would be interested in having me promote their business on The Girl Dad Show, please email us at young@thegirldadshow.com. Thank you for your support and look forward to learning how to be a great parent together.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful. I love it. That's a wonderful perspective. And I love that you're so conscious about how to orchestrate the environment around that. One, from you and your husband as a team, but also the company that you choose to hang out with, you know, and the caliber, quality, and frequency and context of those interactions. That's really, really intentional. And I think that that's very, very clever and smart, because I feel like, you know, I have younger kids. My kids are still little. They're 4 and 6, but they're listening and watching everything. And you might be having adult conversations, quote unquote, but the reality is they're listening to all of it. And they're perceiving it in their own little brains, and they'll come out 2 weeks later and you're like, oh, wow, you were listening to that. And like you're stitching it together in your own way. And in the absence of guidance or conversation or questions and answers, they're stitching it together in the incorrect way. And so I think just bringing them into it is super smart. It's super, super smart. And I love this idea of like your oldest daughter like asking you questions about your business, because I think the hardest thing about being a business owner for me and building a family has been the separation of time, right? Like I feel like I have to sacrifice that to do this, and then explaining it to my kid and all that stuff. But even if you do a good job of explaining it, still like feels bad. Like I have a guilt around it, you know? And I love that you're like just kind of integrating them in. At least with your oldest, you're able to integrate them in and spike that curiosity. That's really, really amazing. All that to say, what do you want for your kids as dreamers? So if you're looking for them to dream and try their best, are you looking for them to be entrepreneurs then? Or is that too specific or too lessening of what you're saying here?
No, it's like I don't need them to be anything. They don't have to be an entrepreneur. She doesn't have to be a lawyer. Like they can do whatever they find a passion in. Whatever gives them purpose, whatever brings them life, whatever they're excited to get up and go do in the morning. My oldest, super, super driven, very ambitious, no nonsense. My middle, Kennedy, she is creative. She's an artist. She's a feeler. She is probably like one of the most popular kids at her school because she's so kind to everybody. But her and my oldest are complete opposites, which is fascinating. And they're great. I'm so happy that they're sisters. Because I'm like, Alexis, my oldest, is like very responsible, gets her work done, you know, straight A student, but she needs that little bit of a nudge to go have fun. And what do you want to do? And hey, maybe that person could actually be a friend instead of, you know, writing them off as, you know, they're not my type of people. And then my middle, she's so different. And she's not as competitive. She's not as ambitious or driven, but she has this beautiful side where she sees people and she hears people. She's very empathetic. So they complement each other really well. So I'm happy to see them kind of helping each other through this life. But they will do very different things, you know? And I grew up in a house where if you were an artist, you weren't going to make a lot of money. So like that was kind of a dumb dream, right? Like, don't be an actor. All those kinds of things were said. And my husband and I have talked about it. Like, we wonder what our kids will do someday. I have no idea.
It sounds like you don't actually care. You just actually care that they dream and try hard.
Yeah. And I mean, please have a job that pays your bills. That would be great. I mean, like, that would be nice. I think that's important, but I also don't want that to come at the expense of doing what you love. And my husband, fascinating case study on this, he doesn't love his job, but he has hobbies that he pours himself into. Yeah. So you don't always have to be completely fulfilled by your job, your 9 to 5.
Yep.
You can find other ways to express yourself. So that's something we're trying to show them kind of the
I
broad
love that you said that.
spectrum of
I
things.
love that you said that. I literally had this epiphany last night. I was at an event and someone literally asked me, hey, you're building all these businesses and it sounds like it's going well. And I'm like, not yet. I'm still like drowning, right? I think next year, my first set of businesses will start to cash flow. So like, I don't think people realize how hard it is to build a small business, right? It's not like tech. It's not like venture-backed companies where you get this influx of cash that you get to work with. You have to like fight tooth and nail for every dollar you make, and you don't actually make money for years. And I'm like, no, it's not for a while. But it is close. I'm like 2 years in. So maybe by my third year, I'll start actually being able to make money and it'll be really nice. And it'll start becoming better and better year after that. And they're like, oh man, so I guess you're never going to find a job again. And I looked at them and I'm like, it's such an interesting epiphany I had last night. Cause if I literally could like go back in time and redo it, I would probably just go get a job and just find hobbies, because this is so painful. It's like so painful. I'm like, actually, I may actually just go try to like, find a good paying job where like I could do it within 30 to 40 hours a week and just like mentally sign off and just find better hobbies.
Yes.
Because like there's like an equilibrium of satisfaction. It's like, I don't know. It literally happened to me last night. So it's like so funny that you just said that about your husband, because there's so much truth to it. There's so much truth to what you just said. It's amazing. It's amazing insight. Yeah.
Well, and me in my industry, I talk to people, employees, managers, all different levels all the time about what they find fulfillment in. And sometimes you'll find people that are trying to shove all of their expectations for joy, happiness, like purpose, all into a job. And I'm like, time out. Why?
Exactly. Yeah.
Why are we doing that? Because you're at work this much of your time. What are you doing with all this other time? Like, why? So, and sometimes we get like, I'm lucky. I feel like I'm a lucky one who found a job, who created a business around something that I find purpose and fulfillment in. That's great. That doesn't have to be everybody's story.
No.
There's so much else outside of work that matters.
That's right. And I just think that it's so great that you were able to like articulate that so succinctly and well, because I think it's an insight that does need to be told. And I think we're so not brainwashed, but we don't even think to question why, like that adage that you just said, like, well, why do we think that work has to be everything for us? It's so weird. Like that whole concept, because you said that, I'm like, yeah, I felt like that too when I was a W2. I literally felt like that. Like this needs to fill it. And maybe it's a generational thing. I'm not sure, but I just never even questioned it until like, I just started owning small businesses. And then now I'm like, oh my God, it's the hardest thing in the world. Why would anybody do this? And yeah, it's just kind of a funny epiphany I had last night. So I really appreciate you sharing that.
That's so real. That's so good.
Did your parents start businesses?
No.
Did anybody in your family have businesses?
No.
Oh, wow. Holy cow. So you're like kind of pioneering this just kind of out of nowhere. You're just like doing this and you're sparking your own track and road.
Yeah.
So you didn't grow up around entrepreneurs or business owners?
Nope.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's really special. How has it been so far?
Just what, business or?
Yeah. Running a business, being a business owner, and yeah.
Oh my gosh. Gosh, it is a lot like parenting. It's a very hard job, but it's very fulfilling. I wouldn't trade it for anything else. I don't know that I, at this stage, could go back to do a 9-to-5. Maybe down the road that would happen, who knows? But no, right now I'm like, this is what I want. This is absolutely what I was meant to do. And it is hard. It is hard, but I do hard things. You do hard things, and that's okay. It doesn't have to be easy. I think there's a lot of people out there right now, like, gosh, you can hear about them on TikTok and all the things, but that are like, man, I work 30 hours and my life is so hard. Like whatever expectation, life is hard. Life is hard. Anything worth going after is gonna take sacrifice. It's gonna be hard. So set your expectations there. It doesn't mean it can't be fun. It doesn't mean it can't be fulfilling, but it will be hard. And so it's hard. There's some days where I wake up and I'm like kind of fantasizing about if I didn't have all of this responsibility. What would my life be like? And I maybe go down that road for just a couple minutes and I'm like, nope, I don't want it. I don't want what's on the other side of that, because I had that. I've had the corporate experience. I know what that is. And so the grass is not always greener on the other side. You got to pick your heart. You got to pick which one. And for me, this is what I want to do.
I love it.
And I love it.
I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because I mean, like it's like you're actually like feeding into what you are and who you are as a core. It's like that whole story of like that fisherman that, like, I don't know if you've heard the story about the fisherman like fishing, and then he makes enough, he fishes enough fish to like basically feed his family and make enough money to live, right? And then this businessman comes in, this consultant guy comes in and says like, hey, you should like hire someone so you can fish more and then you can make more money. And he's like, why would I do that? And he's like, because then you could like buy another boat and then you can have two people fishing and then you can like basically get more fish and make more money. He's like, well, why would I do that? He's like, because then you get a fishery and like you can have a whole like fleet of fishermen like going out and like doing this and getting all this fish, and you can have this whole corporation. He's like, why would I do that? Because then you can like sell it and then you can go retire and do whatever you want. And he's like, well, I'm already fishing and that's what I want to do. He's kind of like, I'm already doing what I want to do and I'm already living a happy life. And so why would I do all of that to come back and do what I want to do? And so that's like I don't know exactly where that story came from, but it's a fun little story that I just like, I thought I would share with you because it kind of makes me think about it when you talk about your passions right now.
I like that. I haven't heard that. That's really good.
Oh, great. I'll find it and I'll actually send you, because I probably butchered the story, but you get the sense of what the moral
gist.
is.
Yeah,
exactly. All right, let me switch gears to my rapid fire questions I like to ask every parent. So there's some symmetry to the conversations. Let's go into it. All right. Okay. One piece of advice that you have for parents or soon to be parents.
Figure out what love and quality looks like to you for your kids. Figure that out up front. Don't go do a whole bunch of Google searches and find your favorite influencers and find out what their answer is. Like, actually think about what has love and quality of life looked like to you in the past? Who's impacted you? What does their love look like? And what do you want your love and quality with your kids to look like? And write it down. Like, make that a mission. Like, you know, we talk about business and like, write down your mission and your core values. Like, why the heck don't we do that for more stuff? Like, what is it that you want at the end of the day where you feel like I've left a legacy? I've done everything I can. I did exactly what I set out to do. Because it's going to shift. It's going to shift over time and go back to that mission of like, this is what I want my kids to think about when they think about how I love them and how I had an impact on them.
Beautiful. That was awesome. Probably one of the best answers we've ever gotten on the show. That was really cool. Very well done. Second question. I'm like taken aback a little bit. I was just like, that was very beautiful. We may have to title the episode that. That was really good. No. Second question. Most surprising thing you learned about yourself after becoming a parent?
I'm a different kind of mom, and that's okay. I'm not the mold. I'm not Pinterest. I'm not even my mom. You know, I am Brooke. So it's actually okay to be an individual as a parent. You don't have to be like everybody else's version. And so I figured that out about myself, that I was actually trying to be somebody else's mom. I was trying to be a different mom and not true to myself, and how I wanted to actually love my kids, which kind of goes back to the first thing I said. And I had to be okay with that. And then once I settled into my own skin, I thrived because I stopped trying to be somebody else that I wasn't.
I love that. That's really, really powerful. I wish we started with the rapid fire questions because I have like so many more on both of these.
I'll try to go faster.
We'll keep going. No, it's not about going fast. I just like love your answers so much. I want to ask like 17 more questions about it, but let's keep moving, and then we'll just have to go grab lunch, and then we'll talk about it.
Yes.
Okay. So the next one. Surprising thing you learned about yourself, and then what is the next one? Oh man, I'm like, you're making me draw a blank here. I can't believe I'm speechless for the first time in my life. I don't even know what to say.
Young is speechless. This is monumental. I love it.
It is monumental. This never happens. I always like to talk. Oh man, that is crazy. Let's skip gears a little bit and move to a favorite book.
Ooh. Ooh. Favorite book. Oh my gosh, that is super duper hard. Oh, hold on. Can I go grab it? It's literally on my bookshelf.
Sure.
And I'm blanking on the title. Okay,
of course, yeah.
Hot. Okay. Try Softer.
Oh, I've never heard of that.
What is
it about?
For all my perfectionists, beat yourself up, do better. You should do this. You should not do that. That is the book.
Oh, wow. I'll check it out.
It's fantastic. It's boundaries. It talks a lot about boundaries. It talks a lot about what our definition of perfection or good enough looks like, why we came to that conclusion. And it uses a lot of storytelling, which I appreciate. So for me, it's been incredibly helpful. And when I come across a do-gooder, a try-harder type of person, I'm like, you have to read this book. Very helpful.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that out. I think I fall into that mold. So that's a really interesting one. I've never even heard of it. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring us home with when you're not being Brooke is a mom and you're not being a super awesome business owner of an amazing HR consulting company. What do you do for fun? What's your downtime activities?
Ooh, fun. I like to exercise. I work out. That's a kid-free, work-free space for me. I listen to loud music and it gets me pumped.
Nice.
And it's great. I like to work out. I like to hang out with my girlfriends. I have a couple of girlfriends that are just like my people. I don't need a ton of friends. I need good friends. And so tomorrow, actually, we're having a movie marathon day. We're going to watch all of Pride and Prejudice, the BBC 5.5 hour long version. And we're going to be in our PJs and it's going to be awesome. So I love movies. I like TV. I like to work out. I love to paddleboard. I have a German Shepherd who I love very, very much. And he goes and walks with me. We go to the dog park. We go swim, all sorts of stuff. So those are things that I do for me.
Brooke, that's awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and talk to me about your journey and your life. It was very, very enlightening and insightful. And
thank you. You asked great questions. I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
You actually had me speechless on a couple of those rapid fire ones. I'm like really, I'm really moved. I'm really moved.
Thank you.
I like the idea a lot about defining what love is. I like the idea that you were so like trying to be what the mom was supposed to be, but like you just figured out that it's okay to just be your version of it. Like there's so much truth and validity to that. I think we trap ourselves so much.
Yeah.
Like it's so crazy. I love that. I mean, it was just so moving. And I just love that you're like thinking about how to like define what love is for yourself and your family. And it sounds like everyone's like, it's one of those veils that it's hard to see. Everyone will like naturally like understand it without like realizing they're also part of that problem.
Yeah.
They probably all have that same veil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. And that like, you know, when you're on Instagram or Pinterest and you start seeing all these perfect poses and pictures and all this stuff, you get, for me, that's where I found I got trapped because I was like, everybody else seems to be doing it great. Why the hell am I such a failure? And it's not true, right?
It's not. Yeah, it's not. It's so beautiful. I love it. It's a really good one. Yeah, you have a really good story, Brooke.
Thank you.
I like a good head on your shoulders. You have a really good head on your shoulders. I really appreciate your perseverance and vulnerability. It's really cool.
Thank you. I can't remember if I shared with you, but my two daughters, my oldest is mine biologically, but my middle is my husband's biologically. And so when we got married, we had our son, our youngest, together. But I was a single mom with Alexis for 4.5 years.
Oh, wow.
And so a lot of like people will tell me like, hey, you seem older, wiser, mature for, you know, whatever. You started really young, all that kind of stuff. Those questions come up when I say how old my daughter is. And people are like, you don't look old enough to blah, blah, blah. So it comes up. But for me, I think a lot of my grind of becoming a parent it was like being thrown in the deep end. Because I am a perfectionist. I do love excellence. So I wanted to figure out how to be a good parent. And that's when I realized, holy crap, there's a lot of expectations.
Yeah.
Because I had all these people. I was 19. So I would have like people throwing parenting books at me young. Like, you have to read this. You have no idea what you're doing. Like, basically just telling me how set up for failure I was because of my age, because I was single, which I don't blame them. I had no idea what I was doing. But going through and like looking at all these parenting books and hearing all these different styles from people so early, I realized like there's a lot of expectations.
Yeah.
And what other people think you should be doing. But it took me years to break that off and find who I was as a parent. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot out there as a parent, like, that we go through, and trying to meet other people's standards. It's rough.
Yeah, it's very rough. I will say that I've learned so much today, and I can't wait to unpack all the things that we talked about. It was such a great learning experience for me, and you have a very, very, really, really good way of looking at the world and life, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Young. Thank you for having me. This was really fun, so thanks.
Awesome. We'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, thanks. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you again for listening to the Girl Dad Show. To help our show grow, please let us know who we should interview next by filling out the form on our website or commenting below.